So welcome again, everyone, to this Earth Day Zazenkai at Mountain Cloud. Today is a day of activism around the world. Our hearts know the world needs it. Just this week, a report came out that the ice sheets in Antarctica and Greenland are melting at a rate exponentially faster than previously predicted. The pace of sea level rise is accelerating. The climatologist who was interviewed about this report, it was on PBS, her name was Dr. Twyla Moon. She described the report as a devastating trajectory with impacts initially felt by those who are farthest from the ice. On the wall behind Dr. Moon was a large drawing of a polar bear, a creature whose survival is dependent on the glacial ecosystem. The bear has become a symbol of the interdependence of all species in the wider ecosystem of planet Earth. Our survival depends on the whole, and not only depends on it, is it. The earth is my body. Shakyamuni Buddha attested to this in the moments before his great awakening. Sitting under the Bodhi tree in deep absorption, he's visited by Mara, the demon of delusion. Mara assails Siddhartha with all kinds of temptations. Siddhartha just sat still. Finally, Mara points to the place where he sits and demands, "What right do you have to sit on the seat of enlightenment? Who attests for you?" According to the story, Shakyamuni reached a finger down to touch the ground. "I call the earth as my witness." Clark Strand, an American author, scholar of spirituality and religions, who has co-led haiku workshops with Natalie Goldberg, actually, and others. So Clark Strand comments on this scene. According to a traditional story, the earth quaked and myriad thousandfold blossoms rained down from the heavens. This is the Buddha touching the earth. And in at least one account, calling for this earth to quake, and thousands, myriad thousands of blossoms rain down from the heavens. Or another account has the earth goddess herself emerging to confirm the Buddha's enlightenment, her body half out of the ground. But then Clark writes, there is an older, much deeper story buried just under the surface of this one. Dust around it ever so gently, and you will find the finger bone of a Buddha still bearing witness to the earth. In this older version, the fingertip itself cries out, "You are my mother and father. You are my liberation." From the beginningless past to the endless future, you and I are one. Clark adds, that Buddha's fingertip isn't a hook fishing for a compliment, nor is it a request to have his enlightenment confirmed from without. Clark writes, it is an equals sign. The earth and I, one. The morning star rises, and in a flash, the Buddha comes to see not only one over zero. Each one of us is implicated in this awakening. So as a pointer to it, I'd like to turn to a koan that resonates with the moment of the Buddha's bearing witness to the earth. I have this image of resonating like, if two violins are in a room and you play a chord on one, those same strings vibrate on the other. So this is case 4 in the Book of Equanimity, or Shoyoroku. The world-honored one points to the ground. Just a quick word, the Book of Equanimity was compiled. That's these 100 koans compiled by Master Wanshi or Hongshi in the mid-12th century. Wanshi composed a verse to go with each case, and then later on, Master Bansho added an introduction and commentary. Quite a compendium. Here's the case. When the world-honored one was walking with the assembly, he pointed with his hand to the ground and said, "Here would be a good place to build a temple." Indra took a blade of grass, inserted it in the ground, and said, "The temple is built." The world-honored one smiled. That's the case. The world-honored one is Shakyamuni Buddha. I think it was Thich Nhat Hanh who asked, if you were given Shakyamuni Buddha's eyes, would you know how to use them? What about his finger pointing to the earth? His steps in walking? What if that's what this is? Walking Kinhin. Ryon Roshi, the abbot of Sambozen, once said, if Shakyamuni Buddha were sitting in front of me, I feel certain I would see from the top of heaven to the bottom of the earth. This saying, this exclamation from the Buddha said to exclaim it on awakening, from the top of heaven to the bottom of the earth. One existence. In this case, Shakyamuni Buddha is out walking, surrounded by his disciples and followers. Indra is there as a guest of the Buddha, walking along beside him. The Buddha stops and points to the ground. Here's a good place to build a temple. In Chinese, the word for temple has two characters. The first character means pure and clear. And the second one is a pure country, pure, clear country. Your native ground. The word is also sometimes translated as sanctuary, a place of refuge or deep rest. What Joshu called the innermost recesses of the house. That most intimate, most welcoming, most familiar place. Place of true belonging. Where is it? Those innermost recesses. Shakyamuni Buddha points. Indra reaches down, picks up a blade of grass, and sticks it in the ground. The temple is built. The Buddha smiles. That's it. All of it. The temple, the earth, the whole world, the whole universe, the whole multiverse, the whole chiliocosm. How is this possible? I'm struck by how this scene mirrors the last public teaching of the Buddha, when he's there on Vulture Peak, and he just picks up a flower. You know, everybody's waiting. What will he say? And he just picks up a flower and twirls it. And Kashyapa smiles. His disciple standing there smiles. Here, Indra picks up a piece of grass, puts it in the ground. Buddha smiles. Transmission. Sharing this one world. The earth and I are one. There's a line in the Shinshin Mei, or verses on trust and mind, that Yamada Kon Roshi often quotes. He quotes in his Teisho. He took it as the most simple and direct expression, those are his words, of our essential nature, of what this world really is. That line, one is all is one. That blade of grass is not just a temple. It's sun, clouds, tree, moon, stars, billions of galaxies, this computer, the sound, each one sitting here. One is all. Raise a single blade of grass. It stands alone. Actually, everything disappears. Just this single blade of grass. As Bancho puts it in his introduction to this case, raise a grain of dust just slightly, and the great earth is completely contained within it. A little misleading, maybe, this translation. There is no container. One is all is one. Sort of like two sides of your hand. It's just this one fact. There's that famous story from a sutra where Manjushri, this bodhisattva of great wisdom, asks the pilgrim Sudana to bring him one stalk of medicinal herb. Sudana, this very earnest pilgrim, goes searching all across the earth, it says. And finally he comes back and he says, I can't find anything that isn't medicine. Which stalk shall I bring? And Manchu says, bring one stalk. So Sudana bends down, plucks one blade of grass, and hands it to him. Manjushri holds it up and says, this one blade of grass can kill a person and it can give them life. Can kill our concepts. Can wipe it away. One piece of grass, one stalk, soft, green, fragile. The sharpest sword. The sword that cuts the two into one. Really see a blade of grass. And you can't survive. Your separate self disappears. Top of heaven to the bottom of the earth. One strip of grass. One is all is one. This one existence, freely functioning. Years ago, I think I've told this story once before, but I was at a session, a retreat in upstate New York. Such a privilege. Ruben, who was just here last weekend, Ruben Javito was leading it, my root teacher, and I traveled there with a very dear friend, another musician, and took a full day's trip and very powerful retreat. My friend, who had been sitting with Mu, long, steady sitting, experienced an opening, what is called Kensho, that first real, clear glimpse. Knowing that we were going to travel home together, Ruben invited us to share our experiences at the retreat. It's not the norm, but he knew us and thought it might be helpful. So my friend said, he came, right up to the edge of Mu, but just not quite. Somehow there's this sense of fear. And, it was like he was teetering on something, but couldn't just let it fall. And so Ruben, in one Doksan, invited him to go outside and walk barefoot in the grass. We were at a nature preserve, and there was this just, inviting soft patch of green grass out in front of this house. There was a slip of land between the house and the forest. My friend, he was a friend to nature, so it was a very fitting invitation. A few steps into the green, earthy carpet, and his heart broke open. all the way open. No border, no boundary, no speck remaining in that moment. One touch of grass and everything dissolved. One step, and suddenly the whole world takes a step. Clark Strand said, an equals sign. Yes, but there's no equation. This place is good for building a temple actually already built. Right there in Shakyamuni Buddha's pointing, there in his speaking, there when Indra bends down, and right here where we sit. David Loy offered the Dharma talk this past Thursday. He spoke about the anxiety around our sense of self and what he called our lack project. How to fill in the illusory gap. How to satisfy a self that's cut off from the whole and so inherently incomplete. We learn to construct a separate self. David said, you're not born with that. We learn it, of course. We learn it and then belie its fragility. We suffer the insecurity of what is, as David put it, insecurable. That identity is just not real. Let it go. Let it slip. And you gain the whole world. David quoted a teaching by Sri Nisargadatta. Most of you know. So beautiful. When I look inside and see that I am nothing, that is wisdom. When I look outside and see that I am everything, that is love. Between these two, my life flows. I think inside and outside is just a poetic manner of speaking. Anyway, Nisargadatta has another saying that speaks directly to our sense of lack. You will receive everything you need, he said, when you stop asking for what you do not need. Reminds me of a teaching from Ryo and Roshi. Look into what you see until what you don't see fades away. Get very quiet. Let the waters go still. The sediment of distraction settle. And that mirage of fixity and separation dissolves. What remains is the absolute capacity of this moment. Nothing outside it, and nothing lacking. Master Wanshi's verse to this case begins with these lines. the boundless spring on the 100 plants, picking up what comes to hand, he uses it knowingly, pointing to the case. There's another translation that turns this toward us. Taking what's at hand, use it freely. This points to the immediacy of our life, to the magnitude of what's at hand, and the wonder that there is anything at all. Taking what's at hand, use it freely. What if it's moo? What if it's listening, sitting long, standing, walking? This place is good for building a temple. One gesture, and there it is. You could also say one gesture, and it disappears. Wanchi's verse, to this case, ends with these lines. Everywhere life is sufficient in its way, no matter if one is as clever as others. This life, just as it is, just as you are, is utterly sufficient in its way. How can we possibly measure or compare when everywhere you turn, it's your own face, your whole body? Basho comments about this temple. Repairs won't be easy. Infinitely whole, nothing to repair. And yet, the earth cries out. Echoing that cry, David Loy said, "We are the earth's immune system." Immune systems can fail. They can go haywire and attack the body. They can also function freely to return the whole body to balance. So on this Earth Day, let's offer our collective practice as a rally of return, coming home, and an activism of heart-mind. So still, so dynamic. Touch the ground right where you are and bear witness to this intimate, indivisible world. And may the seeds of our sitting help to sustain life in all its forms. Thank you for this shared practice.